Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are here tonight with a little bit different of a show. We're not doing some live call-ins about Scott Bloomquist like we did last night. That was pretty entertaining. Obviously, that set the world on fire. But it may not have set the world on fire as much as this situation we are going to be talking about here tonight. For some who have seen it across the social airways, there was a situation up in the land of the Northeast, the modified territory. I would say big block modified territory, but that is not technically the case here. We are not talking about big block modified engines. Of course, people refer to those modifieds as big blocks, the center seating styles. But there is multiple divisions. I believe there's a small block modified and the sportsman / crate modified. And that is where all the situation was around. And we do have on the phone here tonight. I want to make sure I get your name right. Is it Mike Bruno? It's hard to mess up Bruno.
Yes, sir.
It is. I believe.
No, it's pretty easy. It is. Yep.
It is pretty easy. So what I'm sure people want to know. What was, I don't want to sit here and get anything wrong. What was the gist of it all? It was this, y'all had an event up there and y'all, I guess, actually teched. This is something that a lot of these crate people like to hear. I think this is why your situation up there has kind of become a little bit of a national topic. You actually teched a sealed / crate motor. Is that the gist of it? And it was bad.
That's exactly what it was. We've been known for one of the tracks here in the Northeast that have had big car counts for crate cars. We have 70 to 75 crate cars weekly on Saturday nights, and we have big races. We have two $5,000 to win crate modified races, and we have the Vermont 200 that pays $10,000 to win on Labor Day weekend. So we are big on the tech department of this, and I've felt for a few years that the sealing program that they base everything by in the Northeast has not been proper, I guess is what I can say. And we had a race on Sunday night, and it was called the C.J. Richards Memorial Race. He was the former owner of Albany Saratoga Speedway, Airborne Park Speedway, and Devil's Bowl Speedway. And the gentleman in that race, he had a motor that under the DIRTcar rules, what happens is it's kind of crazy because they force all the motor people that have crate motors in the Northeast to actually get their motors sealed. Even though they can buy them at a dealership, you have to get the motors sealed by DIRTcar, or they call them verified. They charge $400 or $500 to put green seals on a motor, just to say that they're okay.
So it's kind of like a double check system or something like that? Because we hear sealed with the Race Saver engine, but that's a motor that's built and then approved by a registered sealing inspector place, kind of like an engine shop is, licensed to seal a Race Saver 305 engine, for example. And this is, a lot of people think that's a big joke as well, but this is actually a crate motor that then is sealed, and I believe it's the 602, right? That's what's in y'all's sportsman.
It is the 602. GM 602 crate motor, and that's under the DIRTcar rules. Our track is not DIRTcar sanctioned. I've kind of been on the outskirts of that. We run all the DIRTcar sportsman rules as far as bodies, engines, except for the seals. At our track, we will allow somebody to come with a regular bottle cap motor that they can buy right from GM, because at the end of the day, we tech the motors. We check the motors, we whistle the motors, we will pull the motors, we'll take them to engine shops. But when we have these big races, we have teams that come in from the outside that have these other sealed motors. Now, the seal I was talking about was just a seal that covers a motor that has the bottle caps in it. The problem has been for the last 3 years, in my belief, that under the DIRTcar banner, you can take a motor to a repair shop and they can work on the motor. And what happens is, and I've heard this because a lot of people in the business, that people were claiming that motors were overheated. They were overheating motors, doing whatever they had to do to get these engines into these rebuild shops approved. They're actually approved from DIRTcar to do rings, bearings, completely disassembled, reassembled, and doing work on these engines.
Is that kind of like the main reason one of the main reasons to induce this DIRTcar seal? I finally put it up. Is to basically where y'all can repair a crate, so it's a little cost effective.
That's right. Rather than just throw the crate out, and we do allow repaired motors at our racetrack, but I'm very heavily involved in that. We have 2 racetracks: Airborne Park Speedway in Plattsburgh, New York, and Devil's Bowl Speedway in West Haven, Vermont. And we'll let them repair their motor, but we don't let them shave the heads. We don't let them deck the blocks. We don't let them do all that kind of stuff. If a guy overheats a motor and he cracks the head, you got to replace the head.
Now, is that legal in DIRTcar though, or no?
It is. Yes, it is. Yep. Okay. It is. It is. But where they do things is they have a person in North Carolina by the name of Don Blackshear that used to work for Robert Yates Racing. He oversees the complete dirt seal program for DIRTcar. And this is the piece that I disagree with. Like I said, we allow repaired engines here, which we ever hands-on. The engine builder has to report to us and the driver, and they have to file paperwork with us, and they have to bring us the paperwork, and I approve myself, yes, this motor can be fixed, no, this motor can't be fixed. And at the end of the day, when another racer says to me, hey, that's a black sealed motor, what's done with it? I already have the answers in my mind, and I can back it up with the paperwork.
And so then obviously in this situation, it looks like DIRTcar agreed with what you found there in this scenario. So it seems like even though this was a black sealed motor, it was still found illegal in their departments of what you can do.
Well, absolutely, because this is the part that I've really disagreed with. Is what happens is, yes, they have approved engine shops in their program that are approved to seal these motors and repair them. The problem is the seals are shipped from North Carolina to the engine builder. There's no transparency there to say the engine builder is doing the right thing. The engine builder gets the seals via UPS or however he gets them. He repairs the motor. He fills out a sheet of what he did. He puts a seal on that motor and sends the paperwork into DIRTcar or Don Blackshear. So at that point, that to me, this is how I've always looked at it, is somebody with a lot of money, if they can get an engine builder on the take, they can pay them a lot of money and they will do what they want in that motor, and that guy will put that DIRTcar seal on that engine and call that motor legal. And what happens is in the DIRTcar world here in the Northeast, they make you believe that them seals are the gospel, that nobody in this program will ever cheat. They'll never do that. They pay a bond. They do all these kind of things. They have this whole aurora that, that it's never going to happen. Well, I haven't believed that for at least 3 years, and I've been working very hard to get through this situation in different motor builders that I hear or I see cars racing or whatever, that I feel that something's wrong with these motors. Or you'll hear people say, hey, he said to me, come on out here, I'll tell him that your motor's overheated. Now you'll have a better running engine. It'll have a valve job. It'll have new rings. It'll have new bearings. It'll be completely disassembled. It'll be reassembled. Well, to me, that's not a crate engine.
Right. I was about to say, that's the issue with crate racing is how does something that's $6,500 out of the GM shop turn into $12,000?
Well, here you go. When you're getting $3,500 bills and an extra $5,000 bills to twist these motors and do exactly what I'm talking about, by the time you disassemble, reassemble, do a valve job on the heads, cut the head, the blocks, and they're allowing them a certain amount of CCs. And the minute you start doing that, you increase the compression, you increase the horsepower, you increase the torque, and all that kind of stuff. And to me, that's not a crate motor to me.
Right.
So I've been watching DIRTcar for 3 years on this. We pulled motors. In our Vermont 200 last year, we pulled the top 3 motors and put them through the inspection process. We pulled their seals off them, pulled the pans. All 3 of them motors were legal. But at the end of the day, they were not black sealed motors either. They were the green sealed motors that had the bottle caps. My issue has always been with the black sealed motors, because I feel exactly what I found, that there is people out there for the right amount of money or the friendships in the business that will compromise the integrity of what's going on in the sport. And exactly that's what happened when we teched that motor on Monday.
Well, and you have kind of 2 mixes of a situation here, outside the Northeast, we got our crate motors and IMCA and you got your seal motors with like the 305. And it seems like it's a scenario where you're kind of killing two birds with one stone in this. Not only are you saying, here's how a crate motor can be cheated, but here's how a sealed motor can be cheated too.
Yep.
So,
well, listen, in this day and age, you can buy, anybody can look it up. You can buy bottle caps on the internet. You can pretty much get any of them pieces that you want. At the end of the day, it comes down to series, tracks, and promoters having to tech this motor. And what's happened here in the Northeast, and listen, I'm friends with a lot of these promoters, but I feel overall they have relied on DIRTcar's process to say these seals are 100%, these motors are not cheated, and I think people got lazy is what's happened, and nobody
right.
techs the motors.
Right.
They just say, this motor's good.
Yeah, it's the easiest way to go home and collect the back gate tickets, and just collect the bag and go home and some. It seems like the more in this sport that we lose the front gate, we seem to want to just appease the back gate, and I think that's where a lot of this comes from as well. Not only just in attendance, but also in not saying up there in that area, but there's a lot of racers with their companies and businesses who will then sponsor the racetrack and put a lot of money into the racetrack. And then now you have the politics that I talk about all the time that people don't like to talk about that are actually playing into the hands as to why this guy's not getting properly teched.
Well, and that happens more than you can imagine.
Oh, I'm sure it does. Now, what happened in this particular situation? Of course, the engine, you kind of went through it there, but the engine, obviously the image of the engine being pulled out of the car with your post, I believe, at the Devil's Bowl Speedway. Hard for me to say Devil's Bowl Speedway because, mine's gone already. You son of a bitch. We were texting earlier. It's like, we're the only ones left now. Don't say that too loud. You'll have some bullets coming your way. You damn it.
The funny thing was 3 years ago, Copart we used to have a Copart yard here at our racetrack, and they tried buying our facility as well, but we turned them down.
Yeah, it happened. So this engine, and it is funny, Devil's Bow and y'all, there was always some kind of intertwining. We would get messages on the social medias and emails about y'all's events, and I'm sure y'all got them the other way around. And
same thing, yep.
I'm sure it happened. I have not been to your track, but you're saying there's this Vermont 200. I do want to travel that way again. I have raced in that area, but I haven't been to Vermont to see a race. I've been through the state. This image of the motor out, so what was the process from this motor coming out to what y'all did to finding the illegal things, and what were those illegal things?
Yeah, what happened was it started, this actually started with him a few years ago because he actually had messaged me on social media wanting to come to one of our races back in 2022 in September, the Vermont 200. It paid $10,000 to win. And I had told him at that point that, we don't allow rebuilt motors, but if you have a repaired motor, I'm okay with that. I need to see the paperwork, and we have to approve it. So bring the paperwork with you to the racetrack. And I gave him the particulars of what could be done. He said, no, I'm legal. He comes to the Vermont 200 in 2022, wins a heat race, and I went to my tech official and said, did he bring that paperwork to you? Nope, never brought the paperwork. So I went to him and said, where's the paperwork? Oh, we forgot it. So right there, that told me that something was already going on shady 2 years ago. And then he went to another race at Albany-Saratoga Speedway in 2022, and DIRTcar actually pulled the motor. And they had somebody protest it, and they paid $1,000 to protest it. And DIRTcar told them that they could only choose one thing to tech on that motor. Now, if I'm a racer, and I've been a racer for years, if I pay $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever to tech a motor, I feel that motor should be completely tech it. Don't half-ass it.
The rule book should be the rule book, straight up. Every
that's right.
item.
There shouldn't be no sugarcoating it. So he picked the dyno. So they went and dynoed the motor because he had to race this motor the next day, and they deemed that on the dyno the motor was legal. So they gave him back the motor. Well, he stomped the field that night. That was red flag number 2 because after the fact, I heard that there was inconsistencies with the dyno numbers, and that the motor held at 6,000 RPMs, meaning that it stayed consistent a lot longer than any other motor that ran through the 6,000 curve on a dyno. But they let it go. So last year he had a good season. This year he came to our track at Airborne Park Speedway. My mind's still out there saying, what's going on here? he got in a wreck, so we didn't get a chance to look at his motor then. Then 3 weeks ago, he went to a track called Mohawk Raceway in Cornwall, and he waxed the fields. I mean, completely cleaned up. I mean, he lapped up to, I don't know, 8th or 9th in the race. It was an ass stomping. So then the weirdest thing was last Wednesday, he said, hey, your rained out CJ race, he messaged me, is a redo because it's rained out. Can I come and race? And I said, yeah, absolutely, you can come and race. He already knew what my feelings are on engine stuff, so I didn't raise the red flag with him again because he was already on my radar. So he came to the race on Sunday, and he ran good in the heat race. He redrew 8th. About 20 laps into this race, he gets up on the outside, and he just blew the field away. And listen, we had last year in 18 races, we had 15 or 16 different winners. We just don't have people clean up here, and all of our races are within 1 to 2/10 of a second, the whole field.
Right, when you can do it on the top, that says you got something pulling too.
He was 0.5 of a quicker than the whole field that night on Sunday. So about halfway through the race, I radioed my tech officials and said, guys, that noise his motor's making when he gets back in the gas, that's not normal in a crate motor. I said, I've watched a lot of crate races, and you need to get the engine stand and the motor plates and that stuff ready to go because we are pulling his motor after this race. So what happened was they come into tech, they did victory lane, come into tech. We said this was 9:28, the race ended. So they were probably in tech by our victory lanes lasted about 10, 15 minutes on a big race. So he was in tech at least by 9:45. They hemmed and hawed, went back and forth. We did our regular checks, tires, carburetors, rev boxes, wiring, all that kind of stuff. And at that point, when they were doing that, they said to him, you got to pull the motor. Well, the first thing he wanted to do was talk to me. So I went over there. I'm, pretty easy to get along with, and I treat you like you treat me. You respect me, I respect you. And he did. He said, I've got a race at Ransomville on Tuesday night for a dirt series race, and I can't pull this motor out. I said to him, well, this is how I look at it, Cedric. How much does that race pay at Ransomville on Tuesday night? He said it pays $1,500 to win, I think. I said, well, this race pays $5,000. So if it was me, I'd rather prove my name right and collect $5,000 than I would worry about going to that race at Ransomville for $1,500. And we went back and forth. So at the end of the day, it took them 2 hours and 15 minutes to finally decide that the motor was going to get pulled. And they pulled it, and it was out by midnight. But it was a lot of cat and mouse back and forth, and you know what I'm saying, to get them to do it and reassuring them. And at the end of the day, I just wanted to get this motor in my possession. I didn't want him to say, no, we're not going to pull it. We're just going to take the DQ, because I had in my hands what I thought at that point was a way to be able to prove that this Black Seal deal with DIRTcar is not proper. So he finally agreed, and they spent the night here in the pit area, and they actually went to Hunt's machine the next day, the rebuild shop, and the first thing that they put it up on the stand, and the first thing he had was an aluminum harmonic balancer with a light steel cover over the top of it. So if a tech inspector puts a magnet up against the front of it, it will stick to it. But the problem is it was actually an aluminum harmonic balancer, which obviously it's going to make a crate motor turn up a lot quicker.
Right.
So that was the first thing right there where he was going to be DQ'd, but they continued on with the process because I wanted that. Plus now DIRTcar was involved because they have it's at a DIRTcar shop. It's a resealer. Plus they called Don Blackshear to let him know what was going on with this engine. So they went and degreed the cam was the next process, and the first time on the cam, how they've always done the crate motors that they always do, and the way I do it when I'm there with them, it didn't come up proper. The numbers didn't come up right. So they called Don Blackshear in North Carolina, the head of the DIRTcar sealing, and he said, you need to take this motor and degree it, check it at 37 degrees. So they did, and it was close, but it wasn't 100%. So at that point, everybody had a little conversation there, and they thought, after the fact that maybe there is some GM cheater cams out there that they're beating the cam doctor with, where at the track, some tracks have a cam doctor that they hook up, but this certain cam that people make beats that. So their assumption was that that's what that cam was, but they didn't know that. So we said, that's number two. The next thing we need to do is we need to whistle the motor, which checks basically the compression, if the heads have been cut or the block's been decked. They checked number one cylinder first, and it come in at 10.1, which the max to pull a head off for us or for DIRTcar is 9.7. That first cylinder come in at 9.1. They called Don Blackshear. Don Blackshear says, well, let's check the 5 and 6. So they checked 5 and 6, and it was 10-3, and then 10-4 and 10-5 slashing, which at that point, you know, because you've been around this business and you tech crate motors are like us, we do it all the time. We know that this motor's been juiced up. So they called me, and I did not go to the technical inspection that day because I didn't want any confrontations there. I sent one of my lead people, and the gentleman at Hunt's called me and said, Don Blackshear wants to pull the heads off this thing from DIRTcar because they want to prove exactly what's done to this motor, because now we have another issue because they have a dirt seal on this motor that a dirt-approved shop has sealed this. And I said, listen, I want the heads off too. I mean, that's why we're doing this. So the problem was the Gavro team told them that they did not want to pull the heads off it. If you're going to disqualify us, you've already disqualified us for the aluminum balancer and blah, 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 blah. So I picked up the phone and called Dean Reynolds that oversees DIRTcar Northeast, and I said, Dean, what's the deal here? He's like, well, in order for us to kick the shop out of the program, we really need to have them heads off it, and we need to check the camshaft, and we got to check the block, and we got to verify all their findings. And I said, Dean, this, we know where the motor's at. I know, but we can't take the chance of getting sued and all this. So I said, what am I going to do here? So on the fly really quick, Dave Hunt called me back from Hunt's Machine, and we talked about pulling the heads, and he said, again, they refuse to do it. So I said, let me talk to Cedric. And he speaks good English, and he's from Canada, and I've had a good rapport with him, and we talked on the phone a minute, and I said, Cedric, here's the deal. Under our rules at Devil's Bowl Speedway, it says that any illegal parts we confiscate. So that means right now we have legally to take your harmonic balancer and we can take your engine, because I know that you have illegal heads and you've cut that block on that motor by the whistler. And I said, but I'm going to cut you a deal, because I wanted to get that shop kicked out of the DIRTcar program for doing exactly what I believe has been going on for 3 years. So I said to him, you let us check that motor, pull them heads, and check that block. I will guarantee you that I will give you that complete motor back today, the harmonic balancer, everything in pieces. You can have it all. I don't care. I just want my information. He said, okay, let me talk to my father, and I will call you back. So they went in their trailer, and they called, I'm assuming, and again, this is assuming, which assuming makes an ass out of you and me.
Yeah, but smart people assume.
I mean... Yep, I assume that he called the engine builder. And at that point, they came back to the motor, very confrontational and combative, and said, this motor is not getting any more work done to it. We're taking this motor to Canada and blah, 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 blah. And they were wheeling the motor out to their trailer. So at that point, I told my guy to back off. We're not going to have this turn into a shit show, basically. I feel that I have enough. I don't care what DIRTcar does at this point. I know that motor's illegal. I know that shop sealed that motor. The seals were not tampered with. I know what went on here. And I was okay with it because he was going to be disqualified.
Right, but it is pretty sad that they won't. Well, I mean, it makes sense on their end. And, we always hear with these DQ motors, and when people are assumingly doing it, the ghostly deal that's assumed is that, all right, well, I'm going to do this to your motor, but if you ever get caught with it, I'm not jeopardizing my business. So it's you. You just have to say you did something, not my shop. You took it and did something, so that the sealer, the engine builder, is not the one at risk in this ghostly deal. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh, I do. And me personally, I've been a racer. I raced for 25 years. If I was him and I didn't know anything about this, he could have played coy. Let us take that motor apart, and then played coy and said, oh my God, I didn't know this motor builder did this.
Right.
How would you ever know if he knew that? You see what I'm saying? But the fact that he would not let us take that motor apart proved to me that he knew exactly what was done to that motor.
Now, in that situation, is there a possibility where the driver, if he plays coy, like you say, where the engine builder could then sue the driver and say, no, you have no proof, because it's all in the court of law. It's proof. You have no proof. I have proof of, our invoice and me properly, and I got all these, and I'm assuming the engine builder would line up 10 other motors that he's repaired that are 100% legal, and all this you've done, you did in your shop. So.
Yep. Yeah. No, I get you, and there's a lot of that there, and
A lot of
I guess the
blackmail in this
decision
sport, man. It's scary. You know?
Oh, well, listen, you think that's crazy because, and listen, I like Cedric. I think he's a good driver. I just don't think that he needs to cheat to get it done. I think that he could win with a legal motor. And he started messaging me today on social media, upset that I was making him look bad, that I had done this to him, and all this kind of stuff. And I said, listen, Cedric, I like you. You're a good driver. You will get past this. But at the end of the day, you did this. I didn't do this to you. And I said, I'll tell you what. My son raced at Devil's Bowl 3 weeks ago and won. You want to prove yourself correct, you come down and drive my car and see if you can win with a legal car. He never responded to me again.
Yeah. It's bad when they get caught, man. It's next level, you know?
Yeah, and it's just like, I listen, the kid, he cleans it up, gets a legal motor, and a year from now, and things get cleared up, I don't care, come back and race, but you're going to do it with a legal engine. And I think that at the end of the day, for me, it wasn't about Cedric Gabbro. It was because I don't like cheaters. But at the end of the day, it was to expose this DIRTcar program and prove to the people in the Northeast what I've been thinking for 3 years, that this SEAL program is broken, that it's not legit, and there is motor builders out there that will put their image on the line to take the money under the situation of the way DIRTcar allows them to do it by mailing these motor builders the seals and letting them seal them motors with no transparency.
Well, and obviously the driver, I believe it said, was fined $5,000 and suspended for a year. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep. And
then it looks like DIRTcar somewhat agreed with this situation around the motor builder, because they actually received a, I guess, indefinite suspension from sealing and repair.
Yes, and I found that out this afternoon, and I'm happy. I'm glad that DIRTcar did the right thing, because the conversation that I had with them is they weren't gonna unless the heads were pulled. So somewheres along the line, they came back around and probably had some meetings and decided that, you know, this is the right thing to do with. And I heard through the racing grapevine that they all had a conversation with the motor builder and asked him if, you know, he sealed this motor, and if he took pictures of this motor when leaving his shop, and he said, no, I didn't, and pretty much didn't disagree with their findings. And at that point, they give him the boot out of the program.
Is that a part of the protocol in doing that? When you're repairing and sealing, you're supposed to take pictures in the process?
I don't know that. I know that they're supposed to fill out a sheet of exactly what they do, and they have to send that to Don Blackshear. I don't know if that caught me off guard when I was told that. So I'm going to investigate that and see if that's the case. You know what I'm saying?
And it is new generation engines out of Canada. It's just like, I believe it's right across Buffalo,
Niagara Falls. Yep, It is. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, again, knowing people in the racing business, they have a sportsman race tonight at Ransomville with the Super DIRTcar series. And in the pit meeting at Ransomville, they told the sportsman drivers that about the situation, which everybody in the Northeast knows it, but they told them in the pit meeting that New Generation was booted out of the program, and that they're going to be looking at people that have them motors, and there is motors, and I got some messages from reputable people today in Western New York that there's some motors that now that this has come to light, some cars that have been winning a lot of races, they suspect the same exact thing.
Well, I mean, when I actually did get to run a sportsman up there, I mainly ran, I was running during the COVID year at Land of Legends and Outlawed, but Ransomville wasn't running at the time. I drove for a guy named Andrew Smith, and they had new generation engines. Not sure if that was a similar situation. I know he won a lot up there in that area, but it is very interesting, and that was kind of my question in the comments. I said, I said this on the DIRTcar Racing post. I said, so can a driver run a new gen motor in DIRTcar events going forward? And some people were like, that's a crazy question, but other people liked it. I mean, if the seals are kind of voided, you would think that the seals on the cars that are running would be voided in a way.
If I was running DIRTcar, me personally, I would find out, because they know who has these new gen motors.
Right.
I would reach out to them teams and say, before you run any more races, you need to get these motors re-verified in engine shop immediately.
That sounds smart. Why is that?
Or if you come to a race, no questions asked, we're pulling your motor.
Right.
That's just, that's the integrity that they have to back this up. They can't just say, okay, keep racing them. You know what I'm saying? Me personally, I would not do that. I can't speak for DIRTcar. I'm not part of the DIRTcar program. I'm just telling you my opinion of how I think that they should carry on with it.
Well, and then what does New Gen do? At the end of the day, if you break the law, there is consequences, but I'm sure they do more than just crate motors, hopefully for their.
Most engine builders do. Yep.
It's just I'm assuming Sportsman's is a big deal up there. The big block modified prices.
There's between 600 cars in the Northeast.
Yeah, and not a lot of people can afford those big block motors. They're not cheap engines.
They're $50,000 plus now.
Yeah, and the 358, even though it's a supplemental motor, it's just as close from my understanding.
Yep.
So
and that's why we've stuck with crate motors here, because I believe it's the wave of the future. Even though the crate motors have gone up to $6,500 and things like that, it's still a cheap way to go racing with a modified style car, because you have a 358 motor now and you have to do a rebuild on it. It's going to cost you $6,000 to $8,000 at the end of the season to do a rebuild on it. So if you can run a crate motor for $6,500 without the accessories for 2 years, you're still way ahead of what a 358 motor would be that you're spending $25,000 to $35,000 on, and then you got to spend another $8,000 to rebuild at the end of the year.
Well, and without the accessories is the curiosity part. It is the crate thing was introduced to be, take this $6,500 motor, throw it in the car, and everybody's equal. And even in the crate motors of the IMCA modifieds, and like I said, even sealed motors like the Race Saver, how all of a sudden it's something that's $6,500, $12,000, $14,000, $15,000, $16,000. That's not staying with what it should be.
Nope. But the problem is GM has created some of this, because what's happening in their machining and stuff, they have put out motors out of the factory that the tolerances come out screwed up, and tolerances, crankshafts are off, and people blow up engines and things like that. So that's where some of this has come in with the repair part of it, as well as kind of falls on GM's head. And then GM gets where you can't get heads, you can't get things that you need to fix these motors, because GM, in my mind, wants to just sell motors. They want to keep selling motors, sell motors, sell motors, sell motors.
Well, it sounds like a very interesting story. Sounds similar to Hoosier or something. They make bad tires. You just got to buy another one,
Yep. And we've had people, we had a guy at our track this year, I think he had 19 laps on a motor that the tolerances were wrong on the rings and the piston, and he's been out of racing at our track. I believe it's 7 or 8 weeks, because he's been fighting with GM through Ingram Motors to get another motor, and he can't afford just to go out and buy another motor.
Now, do you think these motors were ever built to be on a dirt track, or were they built for, your 72 Chevelle,
Well, they're a truck motor. That's what they are. They are a truck motor. That's what, you know what I mean? And that's
we're the
why
idiots trying to race them,
Yep. Well, that's why they try to put the rev limiter on them. They try to get people to run pump gas. They try to get people to do things to keep the motor longevity. But at the end of the day, we're driven in a sport now where people want to buy things. We're in a store-bought business where, it used to be, people wanted to fix things. People wanted to rebuild things. It's not that way anymore. Even dirt modified racing in Northeast, it's a store-bought business. Everybody can buy what the next guy has as long as they can afford it. And it's kind of created that whole wave and persona with new people coming in the sport, because they think that if Matt Shepard wins a championship with his car, they think that they can go buy Matt Shepard's car and win a championship the next year. And that's not how the business works, unfortunately. But that's...
Yeah, well, and I experienced this recently. Probably one of the biggest names in sprint car racing had a horrible Knoxville Nationals, and I went to them and asked them what happened, and they had 2 brand new chassis from a manufacturer sent to them for the Knoxville Nationals, and one was different than the other. Same measurement, same everything, brand new off the shelf. This is one of the biggest names in the sport, possibly history. And one car was not the same as the other, and it costed him his Knoxville Nationals week. So it's hard to get, and that's a quality over quantity. You'd think some of these chassis manufacturers or manufacturers in general would have some kind of quality control on their products, but
I personally believe that the crate motor program, GM, obviously we know where the world is with the economy and all this kind of stuff. I understand these motors. I hear people every day complain. These motors were $4,300 however many years ago. Okay, they've gone up to $6,500. They have, but you know what? You can't buy a gallon of gas what you paid for 5 years ago.
Right.
It's double. So crate motors going up a couple $1,000s to me is not a lot of money, because if you look at the big scale of things in our area for a big block, and like you said, a 358, it's still a pretty cheap way to go racing for $6,500.
Well, you would have thought that if the price went up, that the quality would have went up just a little bit, but like you said, inconsistencies and and some people are saying that's because of the lack of resources and just materials. Even with the chassis situation, where are you resourcing your alloy or your metal? How are you getting these things where are they actually being dug and mined from? If it's a different mine or they're, melting down or trying to, reduce.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, you never know if it's actually the manufacturer.
The quality of the help is worse. The products are worse. People are trying to build things cheaper just because they're trying to make more money, because the expenses to make things are so much more now. It's created a whole different spin on things, and it's not just in the racing world. It happens in cars. It happens in automotive parts, all that kind of stuff. You go down and buy a ball joint at your parts store now, you're not getting the same ball joint you got 10 years ago. They just don't make them the same. They're cheaper. They fall apart quicker. It's just how it is.
Right. And like I said, even a metal source from one mining site to the other could be a different grade of quality. It's not like it's all fixated when it's pushed out. It is an interesting scene up there. I always say you're on y'all's own little circle up there. But you're off to the side of the damn circle. Devil's Bow Speedway, Vermont. Y'all got some big ass trees. I know when I drove through the state, there's some big ass trees.
Well, we do, and there's only 3 tracks left in the state of Vermont, and believe it or not, they all run crate motors. Just because where we are in the area we are, the economics, it's what works. Our track used to be historically a 358 track, and the problem is it was just getting so expensive that guys just couldn't afford to buy $25,000 motors anymore.
Right?
So,
yeah, for sure.
And that, I think it happens across the country. I don't think it's just here.
Right.
I think it happens a lot of places.
Yeah, Sprint Car World 360s, once they got closer to 410 price, you saw the guys starting to buy 305s, and now 305s are going up. And I would say that's probably the closest division to what this situation is. But like I said, I think you killed two birds with one stone here, because, crate racing is susceptible to this. Because you can sort of buy the same kind of, look-alike stuff with the crate motors. Do y'all deal with that in y'all's area at all?
Listen, that's one of the reasons why I wanted this motor pulled apart, because Brzezinski sells a set of heads and a camshaft. You can go right online at Brzezinski, and they will sell you a cheated-up package to bolt the 602 motor together, and the bottle cap seals.
Right. So you could do that with your crate motors.
It's all out there. Yeah. It's all out there. Everything's out there.
And I think
it comes back to the tracks and the series.
And lazy teching, lazy people. Is that?
Yep, that's what it is.
So you would influence more people to crack these motors open.
Absolutely. Who cares about the seals? I think the seals are just hiding cheated up motors. And if people leave in the seals, I'm sorry. I just, what I've seen and what I know now, I would always crack a seal open no matter what. I don't care. Even if they have GM seals, because now you can buy the bottle cap seals and you can get them out. They can get the wired seals out. People know how to do this stuff. People work hard to get this stuff done, and I think that it comes back. If you want legal cars at your racetrack, you got to tech them no matter what, whether they're sealed or not.
So a lot of people would say crate rate. I saw this comment on your post a lot. Maybe not from people in that area, but when it was shared around, people were saying crate racing has came and gone. Its time is run up. You still believe in the crate racing. You just kind of believe this, hey, you can't tech a motor because it's, capped or sealed is over. That era should end.
I believe that we need an economical motor in our sport in order for people to stay in the racing business. Now, do I think the motors, and I'm working on a project to change this, do I think that the motors have to come from GM? Absolutely not. I think that there's a way to maybe have a spec engine where you have a certain block with a certain tolerance and certain heads and certain pistons, and give the racers a list of what they can put in their motor. Let the racer build their motor. Let them take it to an engine builder. Let them assemble it. Do whatever they want. But at the end of the day, no matter what is done, it still comes back to the racetracks, the series, and the promoters. They have to tech the motors. Right.
So you're saying let a guy build whatever cubic inch spec, the build a 602 yourself.
Base it off a 602 crate. Same torque, same horsepower, but have parts that you don't have to per se. Maybe they come from TRW pistons or stuff that you can get, and not be forced to hand to buy every crate motor from GM because they have the market cornered. Yeah. They do, and they're going to keep. They want to sell engines. That's what they want.
Sanctions getting kickbacks is the issue too.
Yep. So I believe that it could go to a spec motor program where. Listen, DIRTcar is big in the Northeast. Is DIRTcar going to say that? They're probably getting a kickback from Chevy. I don't know that.
I think of IMCA when I say that personally.
But yeah, I don't know, but I think this could evolve into a spec motor program where if guys want to take their own head off and do a head gasket, and they don't want to pay an engine shop $1,500 to do it, pull your friggin' head off, put the head gasket on. These are the specs you better be that next week when we whistle that motor.
Right.
You know what I mean, and so on, and let them have a motor for $45,000 or $5,000 instead of paying GM $6,500 or $7,000 and go in a different direction with it, because I just think the sealing's garbage now. I just think that everything's already available. If they're going to pull the seals off, why? I mean, back in the day when we raced and I was a kid on my dad's crew, Christ, they'd pull the head off at the racetrack and check it. They'd check the bore and stroke right there. I mean, all places have gone away from all that kind of stuff because of these seals.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
It is. It really is.
So what's some of y'all's, I know probably need to wind you down. We almost had you here for an hour. What is some of these events coming up? You said Vermont 200, huh? Vermont,
yep.
That's coming. What exactly is that? I was trying to load the website.
It's on Labor Day weekend. It's a one-day show for Sportsman Modifieds, Northeast Sportsman Modifieds. We have over $7,000 in lap money, and the race pays $10,000 to win if an outsider wins.
Okay.
If a driver that races at either one of our tracks, Airborne, Park Speedway, or Devil's Bowl, can win the race, there's a $2,500 bonus, so they can win. They could win total about $20,000 if it's one of our regulars that win this race.
Okay, and that's almost the last of your weekends, it looks like. I guess y'all get done pretty early. I guess the weather.
It starts going the other way. The weather starts getting the other way, and you can't get people in the stands, and the fans, the people are getting ready for winter, and they're starting to go deer hunting. They're cutting wood. They're doing all the things that they do in this area in the fall. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Okay, and that's Labor Day weekend. A lot of racing happening Labor Day weekend. Tons of it.
Oh, there is. 2 years ago, we had 76 cars. Last year, we had 80 cars for that race.
Wow. I'm surprised High Limit or World Outlaws ain't hit you up. It looks like it has a nice track.
Well, what happens in our area is you got to get a swing where there can be multiple tracks that are willing to take that on. Because, again, the World of Outlaws or wherever, Lucas, whoever, they're not going to come to an area for one track. I know Brett Dale, runs some stuff. So if we can get a swing where 2 or 3 tracks will run them in the same weekend, I think that can happen.
Right. I'm sure David Gravel would cry if he could get back, that close to his home.
Oh, Northeast for sure. I'm sure. Yeah. Connecticut boy.
Well, they only get to Weedsport, the Outlaws, I believe. They just go to Weedsport, which that's a decent drive to y'all, I believe, still.
3.5 hours from us.
Right. Okay.
Which is a beautiful facility.
Yeah, Weedsport's nice. I've been there. It is nice. So, but all right, I guess I'll let you get out of here. Is there anything else you think you need to say? Did I miss anything? Or
No, I just think that I hope that this has shed some light on the crate program, and that people in the future, series tracks, tech officials, step up their game, because it's the only way they're going to keep this honest and keep us racing. And we all got to be in this together and to make this happen. And I think if everybody works, we can get past this and we can keep racing going in the forward direction.
Especially in the real modified country, real modifieds. I still say it, not these wannabe late models out here in the Midwest.
On the skinny tires.
Yeah, on the skinny tires. What's up with that?
Yep.
Odd.
I think they do that as a restrictor plate. Is really what they do. That way it's the skinny tire. They don't have all that tire to hook it down. So with the skinny tire, it gives them a way to reduce what they can do with the race car.
Yeah, and they run the 604, which fits that tire pretty dang good.
Yep, with the aluminum heads and stuff.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thanks for calling in, Mike. Hopefully we'll get the message out there.
I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate it.
I may have to come out there now. This may be the show. I may have to come to this September 7th. I've been trying to think of a way to get over there because Oshweekend has their big sprint car race. When is that? When is that one? I forgot.
I'm not even sure when that is. They have like an Apple. They have stuff at the end of the year. I know that for sure.
And then October is Super Dirt Week, right? First week of October.
Super Dirt Week. That's October 7th through 12th. Yep.
Oh my. It's too bad it ain't on Syracuse. I went to the freaking I went to the Springfield Mile last week to watch Silver Crown. I took some videos of, cars entering at 160, just backing them in there, old Crown cars. And it was, I saw a lot of New York people commenting like, dang, that looks like Syracuse. And people are still pissed off about that,
Well, it's like anything. When you have something for so long and it becomes a tradition, nobody likes to break traditions. And, it was an annual, it was a pilgrimage for everybody at the end of the season to go to Super Dirt Week. And it just, listen, Oswego's a nice facility. They do a good job. It's just, it's not unique. It's, I understand why they're doing it, because you can take your weekly race car and go to Oswego and race it. But that was the uniqueness about the Syracuse Mile, that, fuel mileage, certain bodies, there was some ingenuity in the whole deal that always had a mystique, and it was something different every year, whether it was Bob McCready or Gary Ballou, or, it was always something that was shaking up the sport. And in Northeast Modified Racing has lost that since they lost Syracuse Super Dirt.
Well, and also, the politicians promised this new facility and all this stuff. That's what I would be more upset about, you know.
Yep, but the problem is, what can you do?
I mean, well, it's hard to get people for racing to advocate. They seem to not like advocation in a way.
Yep.
So
I'm with you.
But anyways, thanks for tuning in, or calling in, that is, and maybe we'll talk, maybe in September 7th. I may have to put a camera in your face.
Sounds great. Appreciate it.
Alrighty, thank you, sir.
Thanks, man.
And that was Mike Bruno, owner promoter Devil's Bowl Speedway. Also is involved with this other airport or Airland Speedway. Hold on, I gotta check that real quick. Don't want to get that wrong, because this guy's involved with both of these facilities that this driver is now banned from for a year, with the $5,000 fine that he must pay before he goes back and races at those facilities. Airborne Park Speedway is the other facility, but the Devil's Bowl Speedway, the other one that is alive and still kicking, flapping with its devilish wings and picket fork, they're in West Haven, Vermont. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I guess we could check the chat real quick. Let's see what y'all crazy white people are saying in here. Oh, wait, here we go. One more. Here we go. Crate is just a different form of limited. Yes. Too bad more owners aren't standing up for what's right. This is right. Pump gas is brutal. Won't help as much. The tech inspector, well, one of them, Skittle Car 1. It's a seat. Okay, they was talking about the bottle caps earlier. But anyways, I guess that's pretty much it. I want to thank Mike for tuning in to the show, or calling in to the show. Y'all for tuning in. Be sure to like the video, share it around. I think the message needs to get out there. As always, you can subscribe, and we will catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen.
Ready to rip, ready to reach. Place my bets, hey, you never know when playing on hopes what you could achieve. Making the goal, peace with the soul, don't matter the bottom with what you believe. Cause if I'm taking it all in the calling, it's harder with nothing that's harder than free. Not giving up though,